Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more very special episode. Today, we have with us Nick Horney to talk about Agile Leadership. Hey, Nick. Welcome to the show.
Vasco, thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity.
So, Nick is also a PhD. So, Dr. Horney has written 4 books. The most recent is VUCA Masters, Developing Leadership Agility Fitness for the World of Work. The topics of this, which is also the topic of this episode, of course, Nick retired from the U.S. Navy Special Operations with the rank of captain and has applied that experience to his work with high-performance team agility. He serves as a coach for the Honor Foundation, also focusing on the successful transition of Navy SEALs to the business world, definitely a worthwhile effort. And he's founded Agility Consulting in 2001 and has been coaching leadership agility and organizational agility for over 30 years. Now, Nick, the title of your book starts with an acronym, VUCA. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Maybe it should be VUCA or something like that. I have no idea. But where did this term and the ideas around VUCA come from? And maybe start by telling us what those letters mean.
Oh, you bet. You bet. When I first started my journey back in 2001, really with real laser focus on agility and really what the world of disruption, what that really meant. I was using a term like turbulence. I said that the world is faced, and now think about 2001 and some of the turbulence that we had during those days. And so I looked around and actually from a variety of sources and found that the U.S. Army, now here is a guy, me, retiring from the U.S. Navy, and I had to turn to the U.S. Army to find a term that could really meet the needs. And perhaps the best person who really describes this in detail is the person I sought out for writing the foreword to the book, Lieutenant General Dan Chrisman. He was the former Director of Strategy for the U.S. Army and also the former superintendent of the U.S. Military Academy, also known as West Point. But VUCA, and what energized me about this term was I think it truly captures what we have experienced, certainly in the past. Now we just have a terminology to put around that, but also the kind of disruption that we have on into the future. VUCA, V-U-C-A, stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And I'm thinking that your listeners are probably nodding their heads up and down and saying, yes, our world and my world and what I'm experiencing is truly volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So I grabbed that and I wrote an article back in 2010 called Leadership Agility, the Business Imperative for a VUCA World, which really got a lot of traction and got some attention on that. So I've really been trying to present that as a descriptor of the kind of turbulence in a generic sense, but I think we can all look at the kind of disruptions that we're facing more recently with the COVID-19 pandemic being one of those as examples of the kind of VUCA that we've all experienced.
And in the foreword to your book, the person who wrote the foreword talks about the moment in time when that whole term was even created. Tell us a little bit more about the story behind VUCA, the term.
Yeah, the story behind that is, and again, Lieutenant General Chrisman did a great job, I think, in the foreword of describing that for those that may be out there listening who may be gray of hair, as I am, realize that there was something called the Cold War that was going on in the 50s, 60s, 70s, et cetera. And back in the day, war fighting was pretty well defined in terms of how things were done, where the bad guys were, who the good guys were, and that type of thing. And it started shifting on into the late 80s and 90s that the conflicts were much more fluid. They were ill-defined. There were new ways of having to deal with disruptions and who were the good guys, who were the bad guys, et cetera. And so hence, I think VUCA has really become a good term. And I think that Lieutenant General Christman did a good job of really describing that and when and kind of how that did occur, shifting from Cold War to a very fluid type of environment for the way as war is fought. And hopefully we don't fight those, but certainly over history, wars have been fought, and I think we all have to be prepared for that. And I think the real value is how do we as those in the business world use that to help describe the kind of turbulence, the kind of disruptions that are occurring in the business world. And so that's one of the reasons that I was particularly attracted to the term VUCA, because I think it does do a good job of saying this is our world now and on into the future, and it's up to us. And I think our expertise that we have in the Agile world, and whether you're a Scrum Master or a Agile coach or a leader of a department or an organization, there's real value in, first and foremost, of recognizing the kind of VUCA that we're experiencing and that we'll be experiencing on into the future.
So when we talk about VUCA, of course, we're talking about something we're observing, right? Like the end of the Cold War and the breakdown of the Berlin Wall and all of the structures that had been put in place to support the existence of that wall, which was no longer there.
Yes.
In the business world, we see that a lot as well. And sometimes in our little niche, whatever that might be, sometimes in the wider context of the business world, we see that a lot of things kind of change very quickly. And we are kind of left unsure how to deal with it, right? And I imagine that Lieutenant General Christman and everybody else in the U.S. military apparatus at the time were kind of thinking about the future as being a lot fuzzier than they had previously imagined, right? And one of the things that is interesting for me is, what have you looked into? What are the practices of leadership and otherwise that has helped first the U.S. Army way back when, but now us, even businesses and your clients, to deal with this fuzzy future?
Vasco, that's a terrific term. I think it's very visual to me in terms of fuzziness of the future. Some other writers and other colleagues that I'm aware of talk about fog of the future. So what's the fuzziness, the fogginess, et cetera? It's not clear. And we don't have a crystal ball that says, this is exactly how things are going to proceed. So to me, it's about equipping leaders in all roles, whether you're a frontline leader, whether you're an executive, et cetera, to be able to anticipate. And we're going to get into some of the more details of this, but there are certainly some techniques that can and should be used, some that actually are utilized by the Navy SEALs and others in special operations. For example, scenario planning. Scenario planning and scenario thinking doesn't have to be just for an annual strategic planning process. I mean, think about that as it's a what if, type of scenarios that we should all be embracing as leaders. There's something also that connects nicely with that is trend analysis. So how are we as leaders looking at trends that are surrounding us? What is happening? What is happening in the environment? What is happening in the business world that may be totally separate from the industry sector that we're in? But by golly, that may be impacting us in some way, shape, or form. For example, even with COVID-19 is perhaps a good example. For those that were more successful, those leaders that were more successful did a much better job of anticipating the changes that were going to be coming as a result of COVID-19. For those in the U.S., we could see some of what was already happening. So how do you anticipate the changes in your supply chain? How do you anticipate the changes with your employees and what that may mean with more and more people going virtual and working out of their home offices and things like that? Those are the kinds of leadership skills that are critically important, and why I believe so much in really addressing this whole concept of being a VUCA master or working towards becoming a VUCA master or really polishing and improving your overall leadership agility fitness so that you can deal with and address the other VUCA events and disruptions that are surely going to happen.
Tell us a little bit more. What do you mean when you use the term leadership agility fitness?
Well, leadership agility fitness is a term that I like to use that really think of the metaphor, if you will, physical fitness. For your audience who's listening to this, think about your annual physical fitness exam that you're going to have with your doctor. Now, I'm hoping all of you out there are getting at least an annual physical fitness exam to remain healthy and all that kind of stuff. So you get a number of tests, your blood is tested and your pulse is tested and you have your weight checked and the doctor ideally sits down with you and reviews the results of those tests. And your doctor or your coach, I could use that term too, your coach says, okay, Nick, now let's see. You're going to the gym early in the mornings. You're continuing to do that. That's really good. You're working on weight, so you're getting your muscles, in shape. Are you doing aerobic fitness? Are you doing the kinds of things that really build your heart, endurance, etc.? Or are you stretching enough to be able to ensure that you have good flexibility? And oh, by the way, you've told me too that you only get about 5 hours of sleep every night. You really need to be getting at least 7 or 8 hours of sleep every night. Oh, yeah, doc. Okay, I'll put that into my plan. And he says, tell me a little bit about the kind of meals that you have. Well, I usually have a glass of wine every meal, maybe 2. And, also, I like to eat some of this and a little bit of fried food here. And he said, okay, let's work on that diet that you have. And let's do less fried food. Let's have more fish and white meat, etc. Okay, doc. Okay. So my plan is to sleep better, continue doing the things that I need to be doing, at the gym, etc. Okay. That is your coach. And I'm speaking now to the Agile coaches out there. That's your coach, providing you with your fitness plan so that over the next year, I'm working on things that I can do to improve my overall fitness. So leadership agility fitness is something that we have studied since I founded Agility Consulting back in 2001. We have been researching and looking at over the past 20 years, what are the distinctive characteristics of leadership agility? And there are 5 primary leadership characteristics. These are research bound and a number of research papers by others and dissertations by others on this. 5 major characteristics that I will describe here very, very briefly. And the 5 of those really describe, you need all 5 of these in order to demonstrate leadership agility. The first is the capability and the competence to anticipate change. It's no longer good enough for leaders to wait until change lands on our doorstep and we have to respond and react to that. How well are we anticipating the change by doing scenario thinking and thinking out around, over the horizon, around the corner, et cetera, so that in fact we're looking at trends and we can do something that is preventative as opposed to waiting and then responding to that. And that's true for Scrum Masters and others at various levels. Disruptions and VUCA is occurring I'm sure a day by day event for all of your audience. And it's that ability then to be able to take that in, look at the trends and be able to anticipate that so that some actions can be taken. That's the first. The second is generate confidence. And generating confidence not only means self-confidence, but it also means how do we generate confidence with others? The people that work for us, the people that work in our teams, the suppliers that we have, the business partners that we have. How do we do that? And we do that by engaging them, collaborating with them, et cetera, and reinforcing so that they understand the direction and the vision and the values that we have. The third is initiate action. It's one thing to anticipate change, but if you don't do anything about it, then it doesn't do much good.
And some people are so good at anticipating change that they stop there.
Oh, gosh, yes. Yeah, let's anticipate change. Let's write that up, put it on the bookshelf and say, okay, we anticipated it. Now let's get back to doing what we've always been doing. No. That is not good enough. So initiating action is about really as much as anything about speed. Look at what happened even during the pandemic. those that were more successful and the clients that I had that were more successful were iterating. They were taking actions. They weren't waiting around for someone else to tell them what to do. They were anticipating what needed to be done. They were generating confidence with their employees and their suppliers, and they were initiating action, decision speed. And so for initiating action also means that for any leader at any level, means to what degree are we engaging and empowering those that are working with us or for us with that same kind of capability to initiate action. So me as a leader, if I've communicated the strategy and the vision and the direction we're going, and I've built confidence in others, then I want to have trust that they can initiate action with suppliers that they deal with customers that they deal with, et cetera. The fourth is liberate thinking. That's not liberal thinking, but it's liberate thinking. And it's up to leaders to build the kind of environment, the kind of work environment that says, I need your ideas. I'm there with you. I know I meet with you quite often and we're working in teams and that type of thing, but you're interacting with others all the time that I'm not involved in. But I need you to take the initiative to think outside the box, think about new and innovative ways. If we've been doing something the same way over the past year, is it getting us anywhere? Or do we need to be thinking about, okay, there's some different ways of doing this, and here's how that could be done. But leaders need to encourage that. And you need to work on how you establish risk management kind of procedures so that, in fact, people that are working with you feel confident that you're going to listen to them and actually take the time to implement some of the things that they're coming up with. And the fifth is evaluate results. That's metrics. It's being able to have, again, if you are an Agile coach or you're a Scrum leader, Scrum Master, and you've got a team, how do you provide that ongoing, day-to-day, week-to-week, kind of feedback so that you don't postpone the feedback for a month?
Or sometimes forever, right? Because
or forever.
Evaluating results is also about creating the ability for the team to hold themselves accountable.
Absolutely right. Hold themselves accountable, open it up so that each other on the team can hold each other accountable for that, but to do it in a real-time fashion, not wait for that once a month time that you talk about the results that you're getting. Do it in the moment and in the time. So it takes, for leadership agility fitness, and there obviously can be levels of leadership agility fitness, it takes all five of these working together, all five of these aspects of leadership agility fitness to be effective. Let me just give you a real quick example. If you know of a leader that is absolutely fantastic at anticipating change and is great at initiating action, what does that get you? Well, it may get you some actions, but that leader hasn't gotten you involved by generating confidence in terms of coming up with a solution to that. That leader is saying, I've got the solutions. I've anticipated things. I see the trends. And here are the things for you, the team, to go out and do. They missed out on generating confidence, missed out on liberating thinking, and the evaluating results may be getting some results, but the team is not on board with that. They're not supportive of that.
Also, they don't need to, right? Because they're just getting the tasks. Why would I need to evaluate results? You told me what to do.
Absolutely. You tell me what to do. Tell me how high to jump, and I'll jump that high.
And there are some teams that feel comfortable in that kind of position, right? Like one of the aspects that I think is critical, especially for us Scrum Masters who work in the team every day, is to help the team step out of that comfort of having somebody else tell them what to do, because it's a very comfortable position to be in, especially in a successful company. You're not afraid of losing your salary or getting fired, and I can just do my tasks and go home and don't need to think about it. So a leader that can engage the creative thinking of the team, in this case a Scrum Master, that can the creative thinking of the team and can help them evaluate their results and constantly improve, can generate a lot more, both for the organization, no doubt, but also for the team. I mean, who wants to be a task drone?
Absolutely right. And that's a great description. And you're describing that kind of day-to-day, type of work environment that could be. And to me, that emphasizes what I might refer to as mediocrity. It just really allows for, let's just get by. Let's just do the things that my boss tells me that I have to do to really excel and to really set things, set things on fire in terms of really accelerating, agility, organizational team agility, et cetera. Those teams, and again, I can even harken back to SEAL teams and others in special operations. We're not waiting for whoever is leading this team. It's all on the team that are participating in this. All have the ideas. All are in this thing together. So it's that kind of a vision that I have for those kinds of the peak leadership agility of hitting on all 5 of those elements really is becoming and moving in the direction of becoming that VUCA master. And that VUCA master, there's a term in psychology that's referred to as state or trait personality, or personality theory. Now, the trait of personality theory is kind of underlying. That is who you are day to day, week to week, anything you're involved in, et cetera. State is more momentary and depends on the situation. So in one occurrence, they might be demonstrating a particular personality, another occurrence, a different personality. The same is true in terms of leadership agility fitness. How do those leaders, and how do you become a leader that is demonstrating leadership agility fitness regardless of the situation that you're in?
And that's actually the question that I wanted to ask, because our listeners, Scrum Masters out there, are asking themselves right now, okay, so how do I get there? So I had prepared the question for you on that, obviously. So many of us Scrum Masters are actually being educated in the old models of leadership, right? Not the non-VUCA models. Let's call it the building the railway models. The what was the American company that developed project management? I forget. Yeah. Anyway, those models, right? So we have been educated in those models, and sometimes, unfortunately, we are also seeing our leaders, the executives, the department heads, and so on, exhibiting those older models. So it's hard for us to figure out, okay, so how do I learn? Because I have no example. So where can we, as leaders on the ground working with our teams, where can we start our journey as individuals that need to understand and adopt these different models, starting with, for example, the 5 characteristics of leadership agility?
My response to that, let me again take everybody back to the physical fitness, your annual physical fitness exam. Why do we do that? We do that to be as healthy as we possibly can be. Then why don't we do the same thing in terms of taking an exam, if you will, on leadership agility fitness? And that can be done through a number of different resources, and Vasco will end up having some links to that, et cetera. One way of doing that, and again, I'm a psychologist, so one of the things I very much believe in is establishing a baseline in terms of what is your current leadership agility right now, as determined not only by yourself. There's a concept called the Leadership Agility Assessment 360 assessment, where you get inputs from not only yourself, but your boss, maybe multiple bosses, your peers that you're working with, and as well as the people that work for you, maybe work for you on a team. Wow, I'm actually going to ask others that are going to tell me what they think my leadership agility fitness looks like? Yes, you are. Because guess what? As leaders, we often do a reasonably good job of maybe managing those that work for us. But maybe we're not collaborating the way we need to be with our peers. And maybe we're managing up. We're kind of, all right, here's what my boss needs to have, and I'll bend over backwards and really provide them what they need. And your boss is going, this guy or gal is a really good leader. Not necessarily. They may be just providing the information up, but they're not doing a good job of getting a lot of collaboration with their peers, even managing down with their direct reports, et cetera. So the first step is to get that assessment, and it's the ones that we offer online, relatively simple to do, inexpensive to do, but it provides you that insight that says, okay, how well am I doing in terms of anticipating change or generating confidence or initiating action? Guess what? I really need to work on anticipating change. And are there some tools and techniques? Well, there's a a development guide, a leadership agility development guide that has about 60 pages worth of developmental experiences that can be done on the job. So you don't have to go off to a university or any other event and pay a bunch of money to go to a seminar. You get some insights in terms of, okay, I need to work on my anticipation of change. Here are some things that can be done to help improve upon that. So it can start anywhere, and any leader, regardless of role, whether it's Scrum Master, whether it's Agile Coach, whether it's a leader, a CEO, or anybody on the executive team of an organization, it's the same process. First of all, and first thing to do is to really hold that mirror up and say, okay, how am I doing? As a leader, how am I demonstrating leadership agility? And this is a process for doing that. The second thing you do with those results is you put together your leadership development plan. So you put on paper a leadership development plan that says, okay, by this date and this date, I want to be doing these things. Really, you're dedicating, you're managing your own individual project, if you will, your own personal development that says, okay, what do I need to do to develop these skills? Maybe it's greater exposure on different kinds of projects. Maybe it's greater opportunities to be able to demonstrate some of this leadership agility in an open forum to other leaders and other peers that I have. Maybe I need to be applying some of the scenario thinking and planning that Nick talked about a little bit earlier. Here are some of the ways of being able to do that so that you're not getting surprised by other things that come along your way. So it's starting there, developing that development plan, and then being able to, in some cases, people will have a leadership coach that says, okay, let's check in with you and see how you're doing. What progress are you making? It's a way of holding you accountable. And even if you don't get a coach, find somebody who is a colleague that is ready, willing, and able to hold you accountable. And you are practicing, let's say, for example, in your team meetings, you are trying to be more collaborative and more engaging, since you have always been a person who's made quick decisions and you've been the leader in that sense. So now you found a colleague that you can go have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or whatever it may be.
Or a beer.
Or a beer, you name it, a glass of wine, you name it. And that person is open and honest and says, you started off asking for inputs and then you jumped into the old person that you always have been. You started barking out, here are the directions, here are the things to do, et cetera. The things that you need to work on then as part of your plan is ask more questions and get people engaged and get them involved so that the solution is also partially theirs as well. So learn better, questioning. And so this person that you find who is this colleague can be very helpful in giving you that feedback so that in your next annual visit to your leadership coach, or just like your physical exam, this is your leadership agility exam. And maybe within a year, you've changed companies, you've changed the context, the project has changed, et cetera. Wow, what a great time to be able to do that follow-on assessment, same assessment, but let's now look at the context has changed. How am I demonstrating anticipation of change and generating confidence, et cetera?
I'm starting to get a little bit of a picture of what this fitness part is in your leadership agility fitness, because it is almost as if we were athletes continuously striving to get that, just, eke that, few milliseconds or seconds, depending on the distance you're running, or the few centimeters or inches that you're jumping, whatever that is. Like, what we are trying to do is to constantly and of course frequently and regularly evaluating our performance as agile leaders and then improving it.
Absolutely, Bhaskar. And it's, think about it too, it's mostly focused on human behavior. It's not focused on a tool or a technique, et cetera. It's human behavior. And we all know, and we talk about it, and many that are on the podcast and listening to the podcast realize that too. And it's the toughest part of the job. And the toughest part of the job, this then becomes a way of being able to, again, having that mirror that you hold up and you're getting it reflected back on you in terms of how are you doing? The same thing that we do with our annual physical exam. So why shouldn't we be doing at least an annual checkup on our Leadership Agility Fitness.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we're getting close to the end, though, Nick. So unfortunately, we do have to end here. I could have a couple more beers with you, of course.
We'll do that.
We've told Scrum Masters, okay, so, get the book, read the book, go through the assessment, get a colleague, a partner, or a coach to help you constantly work on those skills, on those aspects of leadership agility. But now I want to get them started. I want to get our listeners started with something concrete. A resource could be a book, a video, or a podcast. And of course, VUCA Masters, the book, will be linked to here on the show notes. So everybody listening, please go there and check it out. But what could be one resource to get us really excited and starting to put all of these ideas into practice?
We have launched what we refer to as the VUCA Masters Academy. And I'm also, having conversations too with Evan Laybourne at the Business Agility Institute in terms of what this VUCA Master Academy is all about. So the VUCA Master Academy will have some of these resources available, and those that are interested enough can quickly take a little look, see how do they go about doing a quick assessment. What does this look like in terms of the development guide? If they want a more formal program on setting their goals on becoming a VUCA Master, we also have that as well, so that in fact there would be a virtual program, over a period of time where they could move in that direction of improving their overall leadership agility fitness, but it may help jumpstart the direction they go. So it's VUCA Masters Academy, and that has multiple resources that are part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we very often say here on the podcast, it's not enough to try and read. We really need the support every day. And that's why this podcast is a daily podcast, because we understand how difficult our jobs as Scrum Masters are. Like we're just talking about it, right? The volatility, the uncertainty, the complexity, the ambiguity we need to deal with every day. It has been a pleasure to have you here on the show. And besides the VUCA Masters Academy, where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
Well, I did start up a firm in 2001. So believe it or not, it's been 20 years of this that is solely focused on leadership, team, and organizational agility. And again, my background as a psychologist is perhaps a little bit different, but mostly around human behavior. The name of the firm is Agility Consulting and Training, and there are a number of available freebies that you find, on that site. A number of white papers, articles, etc., that certainly your readers are welcome to download and be able to access that. And certainly, I'm open to questions and interest, and I'd love to see that we're having done this for 20 years now. We have been global, and we have literally done this across the globe. And I'm just thrilled with this opportunity to be able to share this.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand that you are also giving remote coaching, obviously, now during the pandemic times.
Very much so. Yeah, that's very appropriate. And I was probably one of the very early users of Zoom to be able to do that, where I found that Zoom had a much better connectivity than Skype. So that worked out much better.
Nick, it's been a pleasure. So thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Thank you, Vasco. I appreciate you taking the time and your audience for listening to the podcast.
We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.